Welcome to another episode of Come Together. Dr. Heather Spence, I am so happy to be talking to you today. Thank you for making the time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, we are going to go all over the place. I hope, but the only thing I hope to really do is when we do go all over the place to make what we're talking about, I guess, as digestible and clear to everyone that's listening as possible. But you do you study and research and participate in so many cool things: music, behavioral neuroscience, marine biology, comparing marine biology to space and space exploration, which, uh, it's funny, when I first came across that kind of blew my mind, and then I realized that it's definitely not such a novel idea, at least when people make comparisons to exploring space and the ocean or the similar issues that we have in navigating through space and through the mass that is the ocean. And all these fun things. So, can you tell me where'd you start? What piqued your interest first, and where'd you start with this? How'd you get there?
Yeah, it started with sound. So
Okay.
I was really influenced by sound as a kid. I mean, that was good and also bad. Like noises really affected me. And so I wanted to understand that.
Mhm.
So I did that through music. So I would kind of listen to things and then try to pick it out on the piano. Later, I picked up learning stringed instruments.
Mhm.
And in college, I went on a music scholarship, but didn't require me to major in music. And so I was able to explore the science of sound.
Cool.
And so, thinking about it from a biological perspective, a physical perspective, and that was really interesting. And then bringing me to the ocean was what that the aha moment was my senior year of college when I needed to pick a project, a culminating project for
Mhm.
this program that I was in, kind of like an undergraduate thesis.
Mhm.
And my advisor introduced me to the snapping shrimp, and I can and will talk everyone's ear off about the amazing, wonderful, adorable snapping shrimp.
Tell me about it. I don't know anything about it. I mean, tell me, what piqued your interest about it, and then what sustained your interest?
It is this wonderful illustration of how something little can have a big impact.
Mhm.
The snapping shrimp is about the size it's a shrimp, about the
Right.
size of your pinky finger, and it has one big claw and one little claw.
Mhm.
What it does is its big claw, it snaps its claw shut, making a snapping sound, but it's not a snap like your finger. It snaps its claw shut so fast that it
Mhm.
creates a vacuum bubble in the water that bursts and creates like a popping sound.
Like a sonic
What
boom.
it's amazing, and it's this really incredible fast motion for
Mhm.
it's really incredible among all animals, and it's loud, and collectively, the shrimp altogether, I mean, this is a very they create this very loud, pervasive crackling sound in the
Mhm.
ocean, and looking into that, sound in the ocean is really central because sound in air, for us, it's important. And the ocean actually travels even faster than it does in air. And it's this very central, important cue, communication tool, etc. for animals in the ocean. So that was the moment. It's like, I really want to understand how this works.
Mhm.
This is the environment to do it in,
Right.
and so the snapping shrimp got me started on that journey.
What's different, when you're observing sound in water as opposed to, I guess, for humans and I guess, above surface, that do certain ideas or I guess scientific concepts carry over from the ocean to the air, or what's the difference or what's similar about them?
Yeah, I mean, the theoretical part is similar. So
Mhm.
you've got so sound is a pressure wave.
Mhm.
So when you think about how sound works, it works the same theoretical way it works in air, it works in water. It's just a different medium.
Okay.
So sound itself, the it's not a particle that's moving.
Mhm.
It's a pressure wave that's moving. Now, that's making particles move. So
Mhm.
they're jiggling as the wave travels, and they're getting closer together or farther apart,
Mhm.
and that's the wave. But,
So the
so it's
sound is the interference of in the relationship between what's still, I guess, like, or what's kind of floating around, and then this force that's being projected out through it, and then as they kind of bounce off one another, as they interact with one another, it creates.
well, it's that so, like so it's a vibration,
Right,
right?
right.
So it sound it's a vibration, it's a pressure wave, it's movement of particles. The density of those particles of the medium does determine things about how that wave travels.
Mhm,
So so when the so in water, they're closer together and the wave travels faster. That's so that kind of thing. The theoretical part all kind of it all kind of makes sense from a physics perspective. That's all great.
mhm.
Once you get into the practical aspects, it's completely different. 'Cause
Right,
anything you try to do in water is going to be so much harder.
right. And why is that?
It's something always goes wrong,
Okay.
and it's always, like, what you, like, least expect. It's why, like, aquatic and marine science lags behind terrestrial science. Is
Mhm,
just very difficult. When you think about it, we are land creatures.
mhm,
We're land creatures. We live in air, where our feet are on the land, right? And we have figured out solutions to the things that we wanna do that work for that. When we go into the water, we tend to try to take the same solutions that we use on
mhm.
land and use them in the water, which can work, but, like, you know, okay, we're gonna take this incredibly delicate instrument with a lot of electronics and wires and batteries, electricity,
Yeah.
hard, rigid parts, and we're gonna throw it into the ocean where there's by the way, did I mention that combination of water and electricity, right?
Mhm.
There's salt,
Right.
there's a lot of movement.
Uh-huh.
You know, what could go wrong?
Right,
Like,
right.
everything can go wrong.
Oh, man. Oh, man. So what you're saying is, for the most part, the science that we've developed has been suited to our environment, and then when you kind of put it into a different environment where the factors are different and there might be different, environmental, or I guess really even scientific, physical, for the totally different physical factors, that they don't translate one into the next so easily necessarily. Wow. Okay. So what do you do about that?
Well, you have to have a lot of, like, patience, persistence,
Mhm.
and determination.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you gotta get creative and you gotta think on the fly because, something goes wrong, you're like, "Okay, well, now what? What do we do?"
Mhm.
And you build in things, like, you build in redundancy. So maybe instead of deploying 1 instrument, you put in 3, and you maybe go check it, make sure things are working, and, there's also, like, technological innovations that happen as well.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it can be pretty tough.
I can imagine. Okay,
Yeah.
let's take a step back, and talk about music for a minute.
Okay.
So you started everything, so everything came from music originally, and you said that had a big impact on you. Was that
Yeah.
emotionally? Is that physically? Is that an outlet? Is that how did you relate to it, in what kind of way? Or is it just a sensitivity? I have friends that are just very sensitive to music and just drives
Yeah,
them.
I mean, it was a sensitivity, but it's also very emotional. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I think that I was just sort of an extreme on the spectrum of how people experience these things, but I think, you know, people generally can think of noises that bother them,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And and noises that they love, right? That and so noise sound makes us feel things. And I think
Mhm.
that's something really powerful to understand is the very emotional power of sound. That's really
Yeah.
when we how do we feel when we're listening to birds and then somebody turns on a leaf blower?
Right. Right.
And it's not just like, well, the leaf blower's on, so it's hard for me to hear what I'm doing. It's also we feel that. We
Yeah.
feel that
Yeah, yeah.
And
I have I live in South Florida, and I have a very, very active natural backyard that, for many podcasts, I'm sitting there and there's silence, and all of a sudden these birds just don't stop yapping, and they start
yeah,
chirping and talking for 40 minutes. And I know that the AI thing is gonna edit out the sound anyway, but like you said, it's the relative to the peace and the calm that is like, "Can these guys just shut up?" I love it. I love being out in my backyard and reading. I'm like, "I'm in the middle of a conversation. You can't tell that I'm talking right now?"
yeah.
So, I
Well,
yeah.
one animal's signal is another's noise, and it's
That
funny for me because I started my journey in marine biology with snapping shrimp,
mhm.
my educational journey, and then my last educational degree was with marine mammals, and it's a very different vibe because if you're studying snapping shrimp, you want to hear the snapping shrimp, but if you're studying marine mammal calling, you do not wanna hear the snapping shrimp because you're trying to hear the marine mammals, and you want the
Right.
snapping shrimp to shut up. So
Right, right, right. Wow, and then I bet there's also a huge physiological difference, and I know this from my own experiences. You're listening to music, for example, in the car, and your car has a great bass, and you're blasting music while you're driving down the highway, and the windows are down, and as opposed to me sitting in my house by my desk right now with my headphones in, and I'm listening to that same song, I'm gonna have a supremely different experience, and I keep on trying to recapture that experience, like, in a bottle, and you can't because there's so
yeah,
many different factors to that,
yeah,
I'm sure that physiologically, it's not just the sound waves that or the music itself that I am consuming, it's the way that the environments are interacting with one another. Right.
yeah, yeah,
So
it's
so
all
hey, everyone, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, click subscribe and rate the show 5 stars, helps a ton. Thanks so much.
it's
Close it
all
yeah.
like an interconnected system.
Mhm. So can I ask what some of your musical, influences are and some of your, taste is?
Yeah, I
You mentioned piano and then string instruments. Are you
yeah, yeah, instruments, I would say, yeah, piano, cello,
Mhm,
viola da gamba, which is a Renaissance era instrument. I have it here, but it's in its case.
mhm.
Yeah, it's kinda like a cross between a cello and a guitar.
Okay,
It's pretty nice. It has a very rich sound, but it's a bit softer than a cello, so that's kind of why it went out of favor, the modern stringed instruments, but now there's lots of ways you can hear, you can hear it amplified, for example.
sure, sure.
It's experiencing a comeback, so
Are there genres that it's more prevalent in? Like, is it more for, like, bluegrass or blue or classical or anything in particular?
viola da gamba are just
Yeah,
interested
yeah,
in it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could play anything on it.
Right.
So the traditional music is Renaissance polyphonic music where you have, like, really lovely, like, the part I like, the consort music,
Mhm.
where you've it comes from this really lovely culture that we used to have where people would get together, amateur musicians, right? Like,
Yeah,
not like you don't play absolutely perfectly and virtuosically, then don't play. No, it's like music's for everyone. We're having a party, let's get together, play some music together. Like, that'll be fun. So you like get together in your living room with like a few different sizes of viol, and you got your sheet music, and you're, doing you know, some nice ornamentation, and like everybody's having a great time. And everybody's what's really cool about this kind of consort music, polyphonic music, is that every line is important.
mhm.
So the lines interweave, but you
Yes.
don't have this kind of pop mentality of like, we've got this is the melody and everybody else is supporting. No, everybody is exchanging melodic elements and supporting pieces throughout, and it's all important. So it's a really lovely concept I like. And it also the viol also got into the Baroque period
Mhm.
playing Baroque music, which had a slightly different vibe as well, but then it kind of stopped being popular for a
Yeah.
long time. But you can do anything on it, right?
Sure,
You can play
sure.
super modern music, you can play bluegrass, folk, Celtic, world music, whatever
I
you
love
want.
that kind of
The one
stuff.
thing I will say is that it does have frets. They're movable frets, but it does have frets. So if you wanna do, like, you have to be a little careful, like, if you wanna do, like, things that you have to think about your tuning
Yeah,
system
yeah,
for it, right?
sure.
And plan around that. But yes.
Yeah. I had
It's
never
pretty versatile.
the whole idea of a tuning system blew my mind. I have a Irish buddy of mine who introduced me to Dagdad, I think is what it's called,
Mhm.
and, you know, and I played a little bit of guitar, and I do play a little bit of guitar, and so, you know, so he showed me, and then he showed me the chords and the new chords, and that really opened my world to music theory, and that's when I realized that music wasn't just a feeling, it was a language,
Yeah.
and then what actually helped me is so funny. I took guitar lessons for 5 years, or I took lessons for 3 years, and then I've been playing for 5, and I just started switching over to the piano,
Mm.
and everything is laid out in front of me, and I'm able to
Yes.
understand the chord families and the language now, and
Yes.
I'm like, I know music now. Like,
Yes.
I could understand the language, and until now, if you told me, "Hey, we're playing a song, it goes C, D, D, you know, C, G, D, and call it a day." I'm like, "Okay, I can figure that. I know the finger shapes, but now I could
Yeah.
see why they're in the same family and what
It's a
they're."
map.
It's incredible. It's really, really, really cool.
I'm glad that I kind of started experimenting on the piano because I do think it gives you that, like, visual, mental, physical map
Mhm.
to understand how all that
Sure.
works in a really beautiful way. Yeah, I think it's yeah, so I encourage people like, "Hey, you know, you wanna, like, really figure out, like, composing and music theory, piano's a great
Yeah.
instrument to tinker with." Now, I will say, when you go back a bit, if you look at, like, different musical traditions around the world or, like, through history,
Mhm.
it gets even more interesting because you have different ideas about what being in tune means,
Mhm.
right? So I think, okay, so it's like there's like there's actual guitar tuners, right? So it's like, okay, it'll tell you that string's in tune, move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But especially if you're, for example, playing viol or like Arabic maqams or something else, there's a different idea of what is in tune. And
Mhm.
so A might not be 440 hertz, it might be 415 hertz. And the intervals, like, a third could be
Mhm.
very different depending on
Yeah.
the tradition that you're working within. So, and there might be some extra notes
Yeah. So
thrown into the scale. So, like, all of that is just a whole lovely world of things. And I think it's helpful too to learn. I think everybody should explore a little bit, just out, even if somebody wants to just like, I want to do like classical music and that is
mhm.
what I want to do. I think it's nice to know kind of where things came from
Yeah.
and what other musical traditions do, just because it kind of is like, oh, it gives you like more ideas about what you can do musically. Like, I think when back when people were doing this, like, you know, sit around our living room playing the viol thing, people were expected to play different sizes of viol. Now, if you meet like a cellist today, you're not gonna be like, "Oh, and do you also play the violin?"
Mhm.
Like, you don't do that. But
Yeah.
like in the historical tradition, like that, you play some different sizes, and you also would play different clefs. So here it's like, "Oh yeah, play violin. I play the treble clef. That's what I do." But like there were like movable clefs and all kinds of
Mhm.
like the idea of the notes on the page and what you did with them quite a bit different, and a lot more was kind of not written down, but you're supposed to, like, figure out what to do. Now this is one of the things challenges I actually experience as a composer, is that everybody wants it all, like, completely spelled out, like, "Tell me exactly what to do. No, tell me more what to do." This is
Yeah.
always the challenge. I'm like, "Yeah, but what if I wanna leave some of this up to you? Like,
Yeah.
maybe I want it to be your decision." They're like, "Yeah, but could you tell me what to do?" If anybody out there wants to play some music where, like, you get to decide, like, your own adventure, like, let me know, I've got you. In the
Yeah.
meantime, I will
For
write
sure.
long
I love jam
paragraphs of
that's the
explanation.
reason I like jam music. The reason I like jam music is because I love that sense of improv,
Yes.
and jam roots come from, you know, jazz, I think, originally, and that whole culture, and jazz and blues were technically, I think, wrong musically, and, you know, that goes back to what you're saying, which is, like, everyone kinda has their language, and I think that, and you listen to, you know, like you mentioned, Arabian, Middle Eastern music or Chinese music or even South American music, and it's you know, it's it's similar to how we speak different languages, and you can like, "Oh, I kinda get where you get that, like, root word, the etymology from. I kinda understand where you're drawing from, and I see how you're applying it to, to d in your own context, in your own way." It's really just a language in that kinda sense too, for sure. The way that language evolves and changes based on context and who's experiencing it, and,
Yeah,
what the world around it is like,
yeah, with
is
getting
the way.
influenced by
Yeah,
different factors,
exactly.
yeah.
Totally, totally, totally. So when you compose, do you compose with lyrics in particular, or you're more attached to the music?
So, I do sometimes have lyrics, but I'm more driven by the music.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm not so much like, "Oh, I've written these lyrics, let me put it to me." I'm more like, "This is the music that wants to exist.
Mhm.
Does it want words?" You know?
Yeah.
What words does it want, right?
Yeah, it's a very cool way of looking at it. I think for myself, at least, when I started, I tried to use the guitar as a means of being able to put words to lyrics that I've written or poetry that I've written. And then again, since the switch to piano, I've been much more playing for the sake of like to soak in it. To like I feel like I get lost in it and I could just like
Mhm.
I almost call it it almost feels like swimming. It almost feels
Yeah,
like when you're underwater and like you feel like you're just navigating almost like
yeah,
surreal in a surreal kind of way, and when you're playing and there's nothing even particular to play. I could be playing D, it's just up and down the entire piano, and, or I just add a 7th in every now and then. I'm like,
yeah.
you could just get lost in this for
Yes.
forever, if ever. It's so
Yeah.
cool. So, it's
Yeah,
wonderful
it's
to.
meditative, I think.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. So cool. So then where does behavioral neuroscience come in?
Everywhere, right? I mean, behavior is so interesting,
Mhm. Yeah.
so foundational. Yeah, I think and I think it's really great to understand some of these foundations of behavior just like for ourselves as humans, but definitely also understanding ecosystems, other creatures,
Mhm.
and those dynamics. It's really helpful because it's basically like living things doing stuff
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and why, and
and
understanding
why and
why.
how and
Yeah,
when and
yeah. I don't like it. The more I learn about it, the more I'm kind of freaking myself out a little bit because I feel like I'm a lot less in control than I think I am, and that kind of, and I have a lot less to say about my. I think I don't know if I have a lot less to say, but I think there's a lot that I think I took for granted about the way I am, and it just
mm,
that's the way I am relative to. No, there's actually a reason behind it, and if you could strip that away, there's actually something beneath that too, and so learning to observe languages, rather behavior has been really, really interesting, especially I mean, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, I teach high school, and, and that is and then I mean, my favorite part of teaching high school is, or has been one of my favorite parts has been meeting the parents and being like,
yeah,
"This is crazy to see
yes,
these mannerisms, to see this human being from this other human being," and, like
yes,
and sometimes in a similar and dissimilar way. Like, I actually had 2 brothers in 2 different classes, and the parents only made one time to come sit down with me, and I didn't know they were brothers. They just had the same last name, but they were so different in personality
yeah,
and temperament and
yeah.
everything. And so I'm sitting there talking about one son, and they go, "So what about this one?" And I'm like, "What about him? Is he in my" and I'm like, "Who?" And they're like, "Oh, nothing. I guess maybe he's not in your class." And then, like, the next day, my student was like, "Dude, you didn't tell my parents about me?" And
Oh,
I'm like, "I
no.
didn't know you guys are brothers, that's crazy." I was like, "What?" I can't I'm not exaggerating, it blew my mind for probably 3 weeks. It was so crazy, but so when you're studying, how does this apply to your research?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just wanna get back to the parenting thing because,
Oh,
like,
sure.
yeah, like, the whole thing of, like, you think you understand it, and then, like, you have another one, you're like, "Oh, wait, what?"
Yeah.
I also have 2. I have a 6 and a 2-year-old.
Wow. Yeah, that's probably keeping you on your toes, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, I'm learning a lot.
I was gonna say, what's the biggest difference from between the first and the second from your experience as a parent?
Mm.
Not even necessarily between them, but, like, from, like, your things you thought you knew or things you gotta know.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate a lot of things about the first one now that I've got the second. Yeah. we had to go find all of the like, like like you do, like, I had total panic about, you know,
Mhm.
my first
Starting the whole
child
thing
and, like,
over again.
got all
Yeah.
of the safety equipment. And then it turned out, like, she wasn't actually all that, you know, prone to doing dumb things. So, it's a lot of it stayed in the box, and they were like, "Okay, where is that box?"
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really I mean, the interaction between the 2 of them is really interesting. I joked before I had kids, I joked, I was like, "Oh, like, the reason I have kids is so that you could, like, experiment on them," right? Because like,
Yeah.
scientists, like, behavioral neuroscience, like, let's
Sure,
ooh,
sure.
let's"
I definitely observe them for sure.
like, yeah, like, "Let's see what they do," and, like, they're yours, like, you
Yeah.
can, set up things, uh and then, like, I have now, maybe n then I think I underestimated the amount of time of just, like, worrying about keeping them alive part, like, you
Mhm.
can't just spend all your time experimenting on I mean, with them, you actually have to,
Yeah.
do all the other parts, like, feed them and make them go to bed. But I did do, like, for example, I have done some experiment, like, for real experiments on them, like theory of mind.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar with, like, the theory of mind thing, but basically there's this classic experiment if you take like a 3, 4-year-old and you show them a crayon box and you say, "What is in the box?" And they'll say, "Crayons." And you open the box and you show inside there are candles. And then you put the candles back in the box and you close it and you bring a stuffed animal over.
Mhm.
In their case, it was a Snoopy. And
Nice.
they're like, "Okay, Snoopy wasn't here before. Now Snoopy's coming in. What does Snoopy think is in this box?" And the 3, 4-year-old will say,
Wow.
And there's this whole like, there's all this different interesting stuff around this, and I think
Yeah, which is yeah.
it blows your mind because 'cause you're like, "But it's not how could you think that? Obviously, like, they don't know. They're seeing the same thing you" no, their minds work differently. Their brains are forming. They're it's different, and,
Mhm.
yeah, so I did that experiment on my daughter.
I know, and it worked? And it was and you found it to you found it to be the case?
She had already kind of figured out the
Gotcha,
theory of
gotcha,
mind
gotcha.
aspect, but what was really cute is then I would find her doing that experiment on her stuffed animals.
Ah, nice. Is
I'm
she
like,
gonna be a
"That's good."
scientist, huh?
Yes, yes,
Wow,
very good.
amazing,
But
amazing.
I mean, okay, tying this back into the conversation that we were having that I just went on this long parental tangent about, but
No, it's fun. Yeah.
understanding that there are brains that work differently than yours is
Mhm.
key, right? It's key in parenting, it's key in studying animal behavior, it's key in studying the ocean, all of this stuff, right? It's just having that respect for like, your brain isn't like mine. Okay.
Yeah,
What do you think about this?
yeah. The what is it? There's a great line that I think the greatest scientific discovery started with "That's funny." You know, like, you really, like, you have to keep your mind open enough to be able to say, like, you have to be able to process new data and say, "Hey, there's a new data point that I don't know what to do with." And then there's the whole study of science that when you had enough outliers, that those outliers become something that you could actually do research and try to create some kind of understanding of, for sure.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
wow. This is fun. So thank you. I'm having a great time with this. Yeah, I find that with parenting, at least for myself, it forces me to actually question why I care about what I care about. So,
Yeah.
like, when I'm trying to put my kids to bed and, like, my son doesn't have school tomorrow and he could wake up whatever time he wants, and, like, he just doesn't seem tired and he wants to hang out with me and go for a walk, and like, why am I forcing this schedule? Why, and I'm not saying that there's not any value to having a schedule, but a lot of the times we have to ask I think there's 2 different trains of thought. There's you have to ask yourself, "Why yes?" or "Why not?" And
Mhm.
I like to try to be more in the "why not" category of life than the "why yes" category.
Yeah.
Especially as I get older, where I find myself more inclined to be snappy and set in my ways, so I don't wanna be like that, so I have to coerce myself into it, for sure. So,
Yeah.
snapping shrimp, they make these enormous sound waves, right? These sound bubbles that come from this force of
Yeah.
them snapping their claw together.
Yeah.
That is to scare away predators, that is to communicate to one another. What do they do this for?
Yes. So things that have been like reasons in the literature why they do this: communication,
Mhm,
stunning prey,
mhm.
defense.
Mhm.
What's amazing to me is that even though we've known about them for a very long time, even though they're of interest to the Navy because their sound interferes with submarine detection,
Mhm. That's
we
interesting.
still don't know all that much about them.
Right.
And
How they create that much force?
well, the physics of their snap has been pretty well studied at at this point, but I
Okay.
think behaviorally we don't understand them all that
Ah.
well. So, like, the physical mechanics of the snap,
Mhm.
like, that's been, like, videoed with, like, high with a, you know, can they with, like, fast video and the mechanism, has been explored, but the full, like, why are they snapping? When are they snapping? What are the factors that affect that?
Mhm.
That there's a lot there that has yet to be uncovered. And I was doing so back 20 years ago, I was doing some research on their individual behaviors and their interactions and their
Mhm.
snapping behavior, and I found some interesting things,
Mhm.
but I wasn't able to follow up with it long enough to really it was published as part of my thesis, but not as part of, like, my publications that came out of that.
Mhm.
But here we are today, and, like, I still don't see somebody truly following up on that work because we just don't fully understand them as individuals yet.
What's interesting to me, and especially as I've been reading and learning more, is that if this is of military relevance, right, and if this is of interest, then I would imagine that it'd be pretty easy to get military funding to do such a thing. I know that there's a lot of military funding for, dolphin or mammal-related research and stuff like that, and if this is gonna impact national security by by influencing our radar detectors, or I mean, again, and we're gonna talk about this, but sound in the ocean, like you mentioned earlier, has a totally different place in the world, in the ocean world, and so you it seems like it would be in at least the military's interest to have an idea as to, "Hey, why do these things do what they do? Why do they interact?" And maybe we could train them, maybe we could talk to them, maybe we could communicate with them, or
Yeah,
seriously, like, maybe we do, it's crazy, but and
snapping
also
shrimp spies.
yeah, well, you know what? It sounds crazy, but, we've done crazier things, so
There's some
I'm not
crazy
too,
stuff.
yeah, I can't laugh too hard.
Yeah. And now this conversation is totally getting monitored.
Right, exactly, there we go. And hello to our FBI handler agent who's watching us.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of potential. It's also kind of tricky to figure
Mhm.
out how to do those studies.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of emphasis placed on, like, okay, collectively, what are the patterns? And then
Mhm.
it's hard to then go and be like, okay, well, what are the individual factors driving those patterns? And
Yeah.
trying to figure out what things are important. And part of why we know more about marine mammals, like, yeah, okay, they're cute, they're big, fine, charismatic megafauna. But also because they have similarities to us, and
Yeah.
so it's easier to design studies for creatures that we
Relate to.
kinda understand
Mhm.
more.
Right.
Otherwise, it's like designing experiments for aliens. You're like, I don't know."
Yeah. 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 That's really interesting. I would love to see if there's any to do a deep dive into this and see if I could follow up with anything, because that's really cool. Snapping strip, I'm gonna write that down. Okay. I'm reading a book right now, by about a gentleman or I don't know if I'll call him a gentleman, but, a guy named Sidney Gottlieb, who was, part of the government's MK, probably, at least one of the creators of the MK Ultra mind control program, and they would use psychedelics to try and understand how we could, either control people or create Manchurian candidates. And I know that LSD has also been applied to marine life, and I know that
Yeah.
people have applied LSD to dolphins and,
Oh,
tried to
yes,
communicate.
Lily. Yeah.
You wanna maybe elaborate on anything you might know about that? Or at least any of the research that you've heard come out about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main researchers people speak to, right,
Mhm.
was the infamous Lilly
Yes.
who was, doing some pretty interesting,
Morally
controversial
ambiguous.
stuff, right? Like, partially flooding a house and, yeah, using
Mhm.
LSD and exploring sensory deprivation and these
Mhm.
things, and yet, you know, a very influential person in the field of marine mammal science, so, yeah, it's
Morality doesn't equate to scientific to something being true or not. Like, the way that's unfortunate, I think, since World War II, where we realized when America decided to take scientists from Japan and Nazi Germany and all these kind of places because they said, "Listen, there's morals and there's, like, what's palatable as a society, and then there's
yeah,
the nature of understanding of the world, and, like,
yeah.
those 2, as much as we would like for them to be linked, don't necessarily have any correlation to one another. So, just because it's ambiguous doesn't mean the research wasn't good."
Yeah, the ethics of the situation is really interesting, and as somebody who has been I've experienced academic programs that were housed in biology and housed in psychology, and there's,
Mhm,
like, different cultures there. You can be studying the same thing with, like, largely similar methods, but, like, having a very different idea about what's okay or not okay or how to go
mhm,
about it. And in my own experience, I had a kind of unusual academic path in biology. So this is a bit controversial, but I my perspective is that it is not necessary to do dissections as part of early biology education.
okay,
So, I would even include undergraduate as
mhm,
part of that. This is my perspective,
sure,
because what ends up happening, the kids who are interested in it will find a way to get that opportunity. The ones who find it off-putting
mhm,
can be put off from the entire field.
mm.
And the reality of the situation is that most biological positions aren't about dissecting animals.
You really scared me
And
when you said you had a controversial take. And I was like,
no, and you should dissect all animals.
I don't know where we're going over here, but
No, I
that
mean,
seems
but it
pretty
is though
reasonable to
because
me.
it's called like the the academic programs
Yeah,
have dissection as this essential
yeah,
component, and it's widespread, and it's part of the kind of culture of biology. What's usually said is like, well, it's important for you to understand the true complexity, and you can't get that from like a computer simulation or something conceptual, which I disagree with.
mhm,
And the other element of it is that there's a kind of you have to, like, pay your dues. You have to pass this test
yeah,
in order to move forward, and I think it's part of this culture of, like, well, we need to make sure that in biology, you don't get too close to your research subjects because then you will be biased.
mhm.
But to me, it's going a bit too far, and it's I I I know people who have turned away from studying animals because of that. I
Sure.
think that's not all that uncommon. In my case, I talked my way out of doing it
Did you?
and found other ways around it, so, yeah, so that's where was I going with that?
No, it's
Well,
I because we're talking about the ethics. We're talking about
yeah.
ethics of research and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it can be kind of start and then just, like, the foundations of biology itself, so if you take so biology literally means study of life.
Mhm,
When I was studying the snapping shrimp, I was doing lab studies, so I had aquariums set up,
mhm,
and it was quite a lot of work, by the way, especially at a landlocked university where I was making my own seawater.
mhm. How do you make your own
So
seawater? Sorry to interrupt.
but,
How do you make your own seawater?
it's not just salt. You also
Yeah,
have to put in
imagine.
different, like, minerals and iodine and all this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really annoying. Big jugs. It was horrible. And
My dad
I was
had
like,
a
"I'm
my
not
dad had a
doing that
fish
again."
tank growing up, and I know how much work it was for him to maintain that, so I can I can imagine a laboratory.
No,
It's
no, it
kinda
was,
crazy.
yeah. I was like, "Cool, did that, not doing that anymore." But, I was keeping them alive, and I was tracking them over time, and I developed a way of so it was great. There was a professor there who wasn't my direct advisor, but she allowed me to use which at her equipment, which at the time was, like, amazing, super expensive. I'm so thankful to her. She had a camera mounted a microscope with a camera on it.
Mhm,
And so I figured out ways to photograph the shrimp while they were still in water and comfortable so they weren't wiggling, right?
mhm.
Comfy and like get actual pictures of like their posture and their color and when I talk to other people in the field, they're like, "Why are you doing that? Just pickle them and put them in a jar and then study them. It's so much easier." Because then I can't track them over time. Then I can't see what their behavior is. They don't
Yeah,
behave
especially in
when
relation
they're
to
dead.
another one. Yeah, for sure. Right.
And other things I figured out too were when you put them in from and when you put when you pickle them, you put them in formalin, you put them in a jar, they lose their coloration.
Mm,
So it kind of removes like the color from them and it makes them a little more brittle. So sensitive parts
mhm,
like their antennas will break off. And one of the things that I was investigating, or actually like sort of like the driving thing that initially was like the main research question was comparing some different species that in the literature was like, oh, it's really hard to tell these species apart. But it turned out if you looked at them alive, it
yeah,
wasn't that hard,
right.
right? They had totally different antennas. Their coloration was different.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you pickle them,
Hard to tell.
then then it's not that easy. So yeah, it's and even the concept like one of the most foundational concepts in biology is this concept of a species. Biologists disagree and will argue about what a species is, but it's still foundational.
Okay.
But how do you say like how do you like show to the biological community like this is a new species. This is a species. This is how we're defining this species.
Mhm.
You take the animal, you pickle it, and you put it in a museum.
Can you imagine if we just study humans like that? Imagine psychology was a study of just taking our brains and sticking it into a lab instead of observing our relationship to our parents, instead of observing our relationship to
Yeah.
adversity, or tracking a kid through high school, or the famous nun study where they track these nuns throughout their lives to see what if there is a huge monastery and see what caused whether they could isolate a factor that would cause cognitive delay or not, or decay rather or not, and the people that kept themselves mentally very active and were always very eloquent and kept on learning new things throughout the course of their lives, and like again, how are you going to figure that out if you're not going to observe something in a species, a person, a human being in this habitat for X amount of time, for sure.
Yes. Overtime is critical too.
Over
Yes.
time, and what's interesting, I'm curious actually because our lifetimes are totally subjective, right? So, like, to study a goldfish over the span of their lives versus a salmon or something like that is probably, yeah, I mean, it's probably it's a totally different experience. So, with these shrimp, what's their lifeline? How do you get a chance to observe them for long enough or not really?
I mean, I'm sure it wasn't long enough, right? Because
Mhm.
but they're, a handful of years kind of thing, right?
Okay,
I
gotcha.
mean, they're a very different timeline than us. I don't think we know enough about all the different species to say, like, there might be some that have longer lives that we wouldn't know. Because again, there's a
Yeah,
lot that we don't know,
yeah.
but I do often wonder about the perception of time in
Mhm.
different species, right?
Yes.
Because when we're studying them, we're studying them on our time scale, but
Mhm,
maybe the things that really matter are happening at a different time scale and we're not really aware of it.
mhm,
And I think that helps so I also do some things with plants, like helping people think about plants and plant sound and how
mhm.
plants impact our soundscapes.
That's cool.
And that's one of the things that I've seen can help people is when you speed up the plant movements and behavior,
Mhm.
then people are like, "Oh, that's cool." But if you leave it on the plant's time frame and they're like, you know, moving really slowly, we just don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because I think we associate well, I mean, obviously, because we're first of all, we're taking in all this information relative to ourselves. And so we're like, "Well, if that's not doing anything in 5 minutes of my time is valuable, I'm out of here."
Yeah,
You just walk away. You're like, "What? Do you know how long it takes for things to, like, play out? Do you know how long it takes for yourself, for your own life to, like,
yeah,
do anything you wanna actually do that's worthwhile?" So, uh, I mean, I don't have to tell you, but when my wife was expecting, it felt like 1,000 years while she was pregnant, and time moves very differently, than the first 6 weeks, or 8 weeks or 10 weeks after the baby was born. Fundamentally different, and it's all because it's relative to, and, like, also, I don't think it's a coincidence that the most growth that the kids go through is the first couple of years of their lives, and that's, like, when the most chaotic for a parent. Is because so much is changing so rapidly every day that we're not used to that much happening on our time scale,
yeah,
and, and so, like, we don't know what to do with it almost. That's why
yeah.
the last couple of years have just been a blackout, but in a good way, in a good way, in a good way, of course.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. It's a blur. It's like things are like, "What?"
Uh-huh.
It's like each day is like they're a different person.
Yeah,
Like,
totally,
"Wait, who are
totally,
you?"
totally, totally. So dolphins. I would love to learn more about them, and I want to also learn about what you seem really cool or good at is being open-minded and asking these bigger questions that other people that conventional, I guess, thinkers or researchers probably wouldn't do. Is it crazy to say that we should be able to communicate with them, talk with them soon, to dolphins or whales soon, because they primarily speak through acoustics, and I mean, especially with AI, that we should be able to, like, translate patterns and be able to communicate? Because they're really intelligent, right?
So so I wanna reframe that a little bit.
Please. Please do.
Well, one thing I wanna say is that when it comes to, like, animal intelligence, animal language, humans tend to be like, you know, "Let's teach them English. Let's teach them our language," which is a bit like, well, a are we really smart? Like, why haven't we figured out how to speak their language yet? So you'll see things where, like, we teach sign language, for example, to
Mhm.
animals, like, "Look how smart they are." It's like, "Well, have you figured out anything of what they're doing?
Yeah.
Kinda smarter than you."
Right.
Uh And and also, I just need to make a disclaimer on the intelligence thing is that there's a lot of things like, "Oh, this animal is as intelligent as a four-year-old human," or whatever, and, like, I those things drive me absolutely nuts because apples and oranges,
Yeah, how are you gonna compare the 2?
I'm
How are you coming to those how are you coming to that definition? Or
and if a dolphin designed an intelligence test for humans,
that
pretty sure it involves something about, like, complicated bubble blowing underwater, and we would completely fail.
Right,
So
right.
So all of that said, there's already some communication happening. So I'll use the example of dolphin trainers.
Mhm.
So they're using cues and they're interacting with the dolphin using like a new mutual language.
Right.
So it's not the dolphin's language, it's not the human's language, but they've
Yeah.
they've come together on a different language that they both understand and they can interact using it.
Mhm.
So there is communication happening, and some of it's rather abstract. So, I have some friends who train dolphins, and one of the ones that I think is really interesting. So you say, okay, people are like, what is that? Jump through a hoop or
Yeah.
whatever. But if you understand things about behavior, like training animals is really more about the animal's interests and
Mhm.
natural behavior than about what the human wants them to do.
Right,
Because people be
right.
like, oh, isn't it terrible to train dolphins? Like, no, you're not gonna make a dolphin do something it doesn't wanna do. So, just try,
Mhm.
right? So it's more about, like, going with the animal's own interests and then working together. It's more of a collaboration.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that they would do is they came up with they had one cue for do something new, like,
Okay.
whatever you want, something new, and they also had a cue for do something together with that other
Okay.
with another dolphin.
Yeah.
And then when you pair those together,
Oh, no.
the then you knew that the dolphins had to be talking to each other to communicate to do that task. So then you're observing.
Their
You know
communication.
what the dolphin's talking about because it's like, okay, we have to do something new together. What are we gonna
Right.
do? Oh, we're gonna do that. Okay, now let's do it.
So that's an
So they
opportunity to
did it.
understand, so when they interact, are they talking to each other? Are they Are
Yeah,
they showing each other cues and physical signs and body like, do they communicate
all
with
of
body
that,
language too? Yeah?
all of that. Yeah.
Wow, and so we should be able to and it's funny because I actually with the premise of my question, and I guess I didn't phrase it as well as I could have, was I would love to understand them. Like, like, I think you understood it, like, how do we get
Oh,
them
I
to
know
do our thing?
you're on the right track. I'm just clarifying for everybody
Yes, yes,
else.
yes, yes, because I am more interested in, like, what they think, value, like, the way they interact and communicate, and so we tell them to do something new, something novel, to do it with the partner, and then we can observe their interaction with one another. When are we sticking some kind of ultrasound? We talked about ultrasound in our introduction call, but we have the ability to translate sound waves into images or
Yep.
I think words. So are we doing that?
Yes.
We are.
Yes. So a
Great.
lot of work is then going into cataloging all the different sounds that they're making, the context around those sounds. Are
Mhm.
we ready to speak dolphin yet? No. Are we paying attention to all of the aspects of the patterns that are important? Probably not.
Right.
We
We
could
wouldn't know what that
spend
would be.
several
Right.
hours about my opinions on the subject, but yeah, like we're getting at some rudimentary elements of figuring these sorts of things out.
Mhm.
But we're not we're not there yet, but I would say there's some progress.
Right. And on the other hand, we have gone to dolphins to help us on in much more complicated and nuanced ways.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but I think there was an article going around that there were dolphins that were being employed by the Strait of Hormuz in this most recent war. And then when what's his name? Hegseth was asked about that. He goes, I don't know if they have dolphins, but we have, and like, we have dolphins that apparently that we've been training since the '60s. But and I lived in Seattle, and so that was my first for a year, and that was my first exposure to the fact that the military does work with dolphins, and it's a
Yes.
crazy thing to say, and it's a crazy sounding thing,
But
but we yeah.
if you do anything with the oceans, like, okay, if you wanna figure out what to do in the ocean, go to the creatures who know how to deal with things in the ocean,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
They are the experts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, that's
okay,
what we have
let's
to
go to
learn
the
from them.
experts.
That's what we have to learn from them.
Yeah, and I've visited the Navy Marine Mammal Program facilities, and those are some of the, like, happiest,
Really?
well-adjusted dolphins, like, in
Really?
case anybody's concerned, like, they're living the good life.
How do you determine how's that determined?
Well, same way you would, like, with humans, right? Like, you can measure stress,
Mm,
right? You can measure, like, stress hormones, you can, look at indicators of health and well-being,
sure.
right? And
Are
so
they emotional?
oh, yeah.
They are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're very social. I mean, I think that's part of why we identify with them or, like, are interested in them. Humans are very social. Dolphins are very social. They're also very sexual.
Mhm. Yeah, I heard that it takes a lot for them to be satisfied, if ever.
It's yeah. Yeah, they're
That was part of
interesting.
the controversy that you mentioned earlier with those LSD studies. Is that the dolphin kept on getting aroused and like there was just like and she's like and once it was aroused, there was no way to get it to communicate, to like to communicate with it until that was dealt with, which is crazy.
It's like, yes, but, like, also maybe that was the communications. Like, why are
Yeah,
we
yeah, 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 yeah. I know. It's just a lot to stomach. It's a lot to think about. What are applications that that the military or that we or as research that we can use that we could, I guess work with dolphins with or other mammals?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of that work is, like, totally classified. Yeah,
Really?
but you can
Anything we could do?
imagine, you know, things about navigation, right? I mean, dolphins are really interesting because they do have a visual system, right? So we're very visual, they have eyesight, but they also have echolocation.
Right. And you want to explain that in case anyone doesn't know what that is?
Yeah, so they can produce a sound, they know what
Mhm.
sound they're producing, they hear the echo off their surroundings,
Mhm.
and using that, they can tell what is in their surroundings based on the sound of the echo. So it's
Mhm.
like so humans use sonar,
Mhm.
basically our version of their echolocation. And what I like to point out is that when we're thinking about connecting with, like, how how do dolphins think versus how do humans think, or, like, thinking about dolphin communication, when we think about talking, we're speaking, right? We're communicating through sound.
Mhm,
That's great. Dolphins also do that. But they use that same system, the process of creating sound and listening, to navigate in 3 dimensions around them. Probably their way of talking is a bit different than ours because of that. And so we just have to think about these differences and how different animals navigate and sense their surroundings, and that can play into, like, a lot of other things, including trying to decipher their communication. But yeah, I mean, I think there's learning, in terms of research, what do we learn from dolphins? So there's things about their physiology,
mhm.
how not just other marine mammals too, like the physio how can they dive down so deep and still be okay? Stuff like that is, of
What would be the
interest.
challenges that they would have to what's the challenges that a dolphin have to deal with to dive down so deep?
Well, the pressure
Okay,
is huge, right?
okay,
And then
do we
how
know
that
why, do you know? Why they
Mhm.
why they why do we know why they're not impacted the same way by the pressure?
So, some of that is known. So, and some of that has to do with just how they're built, right?
Okay,
And, but there's also some interesting stuff with okay, so, like, if a human diver goes down, you can't spend too long at a deep depth because you'll get, like, the bends, right, and, like,
mhm,
nitrogen narcosis and stuff, and so there's also some work looking at, like, why don't why don't deep diving mammals get that? Or, like, are there cases in which they do?
yeah,
And so, yeah, so that I would say that that's evolving work in that area too, just trying to understand how they can withstand these sort of extremes of the ocean, which we find so difficult, right,
yeah,
as humans. Plus, but I mean, they've got lots of pretty cool adaptations, right? I mean, they're shaped to flow through the water, and they've got their nose on the top of their head. So,
well, it's weird to us, but yeah, right.
yeah,
I
like,
mean,
then
yeah,
it makes sense. So, yeah. So there's the we're learning about their, like, physiological, their adaptations to the ocean environment and how they navigate in that environment.
so I was gonna ask, does anything change when as the pressure goes up, does that affect the way that they could use that sound travels with pressure as the pressure goes up?
Yeah.
So they
So
can't be as dependent
pressure
on
Yeah, so increasing pressure, increasing temperature, that actually increases the sound speed because 'cause you're increasing the density of the water.
Mhm,
It's more complicated than that, though. I mean, there's also the ocean is not a uniform space, so, like, there's also, like, layers in the
right,
ocean, and so then you can have things that cause, like, bouncing of sound. So yeah, like, and pretty complex dynamics there of, like,
yeah,
how sound actually travels and whether they might, like, go into an area where there's, like, a pocket of sound. Kind of like the way we might like, when there's, like, places where, where you speak in one area and then you can hear it,
mhm.
right? Because of the way that
The acoustics and the wall
yeah.
and the everything around you is set up, yeah, the
So
whole
there's some
environment.
things like that in the ocean too, so yeah.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, and you mentioned too, so their hearing range is different than ours. So we're used to paying attention to our hearing range, but what happens above that hearing, so they do make sounds in our hearing range. We can
Yeah,
hear them
like
with our own
clicking,
hearing,
swirly kinda noise, yeah.
but there's stuff up above that as well. And that okay, so that's something I wanna mention. So, when we think about taking human tools and then applying them to another animal, another environment. So, when a human gets pregnant, right, you do an ultrasound.
Mhm.
When a dolphin gets pregnant, a veterinarian does an
Make a
ultrasound,
sound, yeah.
but dolphins can hear ultrasound.
Oh, right. Do you think
Yeah.
does it bother them?
Well, anecdotal evidence shows that the fetus jumps around.
Because it's
So,
being communicated with.
I mean, I don't
Wow.
Yeah, so, like, what does
And what's
that mean
interesting,
to them exactly?
we also know the frequency, that we're communicating with them almost, exactly, right? You and with an ultrasound machine, your probe has,
Yeah.
frequency range that it's capable of emitting that sound. And so you can say, "Okay, I'm going 2 mega I'm making a sound for 2 megahertz," and that might be one pattern to the baby dolphin. If you have to go to 1.5 megahertz to get a little deeper, if it's a bigger dolphin, then, like, you could be saying something different. It's so cool.
They're probably like, "What is all that racket?
Yeah.
Cut it out."
Yeah, but but, I mean, we're scared, for example, people are scared all the time of the what are those machines that you go the CT machines that you go through and it has all these, like, crashing noises around you. I mean, we yeah, man. That's so interesting. And do parents respond to the noise? Do it when a dolphin's getting an ultrasound?
So, that wasn't as clear.
It's
I
rough.
just kind of was, like, watching and, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
asking questions, like, we should
Wow.
yeah, we wanted to do a study on it, but haven't done, like, a formal study yet, but it's
Well,
like, it's
if you're anywhere near South Florida and you want an ultrasound machine to use,
alright.
I'll be happy to hook you up with a machine to use
Yeah,
because,
maybe this is a
as long as I
collaboration in the
come
works.
as long as I come with you and see what's going on, I would absolutely love to, for sure.
Alright, maybe this is maybe the we should collaborate
Yeah,
and do an ultrasound study, like, I'll
yeah.
come down, we'll find some dolphins, and
There was
we'll
a there I
figure it
just
out.
sold the machine to I just sold maybe a year ago to, a dolphin rehab,
Mm,
both dolphins and people, and they use and the dolphin is for therapy for children, I think, with special needs and, or alternative methods of learning,
yeah,
and the communication with the dolphins is, like, apparently just incredibly, incredibly healthy, physically and emotionally and even just in terms of communication. Like it's really, really cool. So, but yeah, they bought a machine also for to check out the pregnant dolphins, and we could.
yeah,
Wow, that's fun. That's
yeah,
re- that's that's really cool. Wow. Okay,
yeah.
now now to go to the far out spots. I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna go
Okay,
far
let's go
out
crazy.
with the UFOs, USOs,
Okay.
underwater life, space and water power and underwater and undersea parallels. And did you watch Disclosure Day? The new Spielberg movie?
No.
Okay, it was fun. And speaking of score, by the way, the score was spectacular. Right? It was John Williams, and it
Yeah.
really it takes the whole movie and turns the movie from a thriller into an advent. To me, it turns it from a thriller to an adventure story. And like
Hmm,
John Williams, like, you could do so much with music to set the emotional tone that even if what you're seeing on screen, it contradicts what you're hearing, it helps it creates a whole new environment. I think that the parallel
totally.
between the music and the visuals are really, really awesome for that. So,
Yes.
I'd recommend it. Yes,
Okay,
USOs, space, underwater, energy, all that fun stuff. Where do you wanna start?
go for it. Whatever crazy stuff you want, go for it. Hit me.
Okay, well, I think that we'd be pretty silly to think that there couldn't be very intelligent life in the ocean, right? I mean, we already see very intelligent life. Where would you think to go to I think that one of the big problems that we have is that our systems of using things to measure or like, we have a very limited set of tools that we can use to measure data.
Mhm.
How do we go beyond that? I mean, I think that the world of sound is potentially like the next way to go because I think that if we can learn to interpret to imagine if we implemented, for example, sonar into just our life on Earth, how much more we'd be exposed to and how much more life we'd see around us and what else is going on out there. And how would we go about this with marine life, underwater life?
Like, how we figure out what we
How do
don't
we
know is
how do we
there.
figure out what we don't know, and how do we discover this life that almost certainly exists, below sea?
So I have a thing so you know the thing like known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, unknown unknowns?
No.
Like that okay, well, there's this framework of,
Yeah.
like, there's the things you know and you know them,
Uh-huh.
right? There's the things you don't know, but you know that you don't know them, right? There's
Right.
also the things that you don't know, but you don't know that you don't know them,
Correct. Like, you're
and
missing
that's
out
the
on so
tricky
much, you don't
stuff.
even know what you're missing out on.
Yeah. So, For me, I feel like whenever we're approaching, for example, the ocean, we just need to have known unknowns. Meaning, we know that there are things that we don't understand in the ocean that we don't even know about them. But if
Okay.
we know that that's the case, then we come in with a certain open-mindedness, a certain respect, a certain kind of approach where we're looking for opportunities, we're looking for things that don't make sense and see them as opportunities, that kind of approach. Because we are constrained by our own sensory systems, and that's okay. Like, we can't do everything, but if we acknowledge our constraints and our assumptions, then I think we can go pretty far. Where I think it's dangerous is if we come in, especially if we're not even acknowledging our assumptions, we're making assumptions that are rigid, that could be very limiting and
I'm
possibly
sure it
lead
has
us to drawing strange conclusions from things that we're observing.
Can you give me any examples that come to your head, or if any, of that? Like, things that you don't think make sense, but, like, seem to be the conclusion at the moment?
Yeah, I'd love to give you an ocean example, but the one that's popping into my head is a terrestrial example, so I will
Please.
give that.
Sure. Yes. I love you calling it terrestrial too, it makes it fun.
So, dogs. I was watching some show about a dog shelter makeover.
Okay.
So they show the dog shelter, and it's a dog shelter, so there's, like, and they have, like, chain link fence to give the
Mhm,
dogs their pens, all in a
mhm,
row, you know? And, people are like, "Oh my gosh," like, "This really needs a lot of renovation, and these poor dogs," and okay. So then they show, there's the process where they show the after, and when I saw the after, I was like, "Oh." The people on screen were like, "This is great, this is gorgeous." What they had done was put, like, glass panels. So they took away, like, the fence looking stuff, and they put, like, glass panels all around the dog, so, like, it looks very, like, modern and
mhm,
spacious because you're not seeing, like, the fencing, so it looks much more open, and to humans, we're like, "That looks way better," like, yay for the dogs."
mhm.
And meanwhile, I'm, like, screaming, like, "No! The dogs! What is a dog's primary sense?"
Heat, temperature?
Smelling.
Uh, I don't know.
Smelling. Dogs need to smell.
Okay.
They just put them in a box where they can't smell anything,
Uh-huh.
and this is the kind of that to me is, like,
Right,
people
right, right,
think.
right, right.
And this gets back to the ethics question too, because There's there's animal rights and there's animal welfare, and they are different and
Yes.
looking at different things. And for me, I'm a proponent of animal welfare, and I want to see solutions that improve conditions for animals that are taking into account the animal's point of view,
Correct.
not
Co
just taking our human views and saying, "Oh, I think this is best for you. This is what I'm gonna do for you." No, let's take into account what they want.
So what seems to be a constant theme is that we keep on making decisions based on our perception of what reality is, and imposing that reality on the rest of the world, even though we're in a we have a very limited understanding of things, and it might not be to their, just because we value that, whatever outcome we're prescribing, doesn't mean that it's best for anything that we're doing that to, anyone or
Yeah,
anything that we're doing that to.
yeah.
And, um right. I know. Is marine biology as institutionalized as the other, big institutions like medicine, or, pharmacology or history or anything like that? Or is it a little bit more of a free space where there's more of this, I wouldn't wanna call it creative, but s scientific, I think. I think it's really scientific, a little bit more scientific rather than institutional.
It's more free because it's more spread across different disciplines.
Mm,
So and different career educational and career paths.
Mhm.
So, like, if you're gonna be a lawyer, you're pre-law, you go to law school, you become a lawyer. You wanna be a doctor or go into you're pre-med, you go to med school, you become a doctor. You wanna become a marine biologist. Well, first
Yeah.
of all, almost none of the jobs in marine biology are called marine biologist.
Okay, what else would they be called? Or
Oh,
advertised?
all kinds of things. All
Okay.
kinds of things.
Because it's
I've
just a
had
field. I mean, it's just an industry. It's like saying I do business. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, what
yeah,
does business
exactly,
mean?
but
Right.
you might have different roles. You might be like an analyst or an advisor or a whatever. Yeah, all kinds of different
Ok
things. And so yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to be a marine biologist and practice marine biology.
Mhm,
So it is a lot more open because you got people coming from different perspectives and you've got different roles that you might have in an organization.
mhm.
And I think all of that helps to keep it fairly fresh. And also I think that the kind of like nebulousness, the challenges, the weirdness of the environment also tends to attract people who have a tolerance or like kind of ambiguity or
Right.
newness because
Anyone that's looking for anything in the box exactly a certain way is gonna have a hard time.
yeah, like I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure if you like really want things to be as you expect and you start working with the ocean, you're gonna be like, never mind.
Right. So that is so I was gonna say that leads me to, you think that we're gonna have a you think that it'd be more likely we have these kind of military bases or energy bases or anything like that, in outer space or in the ocean first? Because and I know that the challenges we're gonna have to navigate are kind of similar in a lot of ways, but I feel I from my from what anecdotally, from everything I read and hear and pick up and listen to and try and learn about, it looks like we don't expend nearly as many resources or as much or turn as much energy towards towards ocean development, especially deep ocean development, as we do in space.
Yeah, it's so there's been actually recently a lot more attention placed on like mapping the oceans and understanding deep ocean. Yeah, we definitely spend more on space. It's also very difficult to get to space, so there's also that.
Yeah.
But I think the
We're working
the
on
the
that
real
though.
argument here is like here we are on Earth and like how come we don't understand like it's mostly covered in water, like we're this blue planet, like shouldn't we know what's going on there?
Mhm.
I think even more shocking than like, oh, we don't understand the deep ocean, is that we don't understand the shallow ocean.
Really?
There's a lot that we do not understand, and it's sometimes I think marine science kind of people are like, "Oh, well, like, the sexy thing to do is, like, look at the deep ocean. Let's focus on that. That's where the cool stuff is happening." There's cool stuff and discoveries being made in shallow waters also,
Right.
and it's also cool. There's some really interesting things that happen, like extreme environments with, like, tidal cycles. Like, you have
Mhm.
animals that can survive in air and in water, with, like, extreme currents going past, right? Like, these
Yeah.
extreme conditional extremes, and the the human ocean interface, right, which a lot of that is happening along our coastlines, and people tend to live near the coasts, and like,
Yeah.
all of that dynamic, and a lot of things about coral reef and coral reef health, which is something I'm involved in research on. It's like, what do we what that's the humans are part of it, but also, like, do we understand corals and,
A
like, their
coral reefs to the
needs?
ocean, what, like, trees are to land?
A little bit because they provide structure.
Mhm.
They so a lot of it is what is sort of like the really obvious role is that structural element that provides the framework for other
Right.
creatures to have habitat habitat there. So that's yeah, that's a big part of it.
Right. Right. Yeah, we I was talking to, someone recently about this. There's a great documentary called AI Apocalyptimist,
I
right?
have heard of that, and I've been told that I should see it, but I have not yet.
Yeah, it's on Peacock. It's very good. It's very good. I actually emailed the creator to try to do a podcast with him because I was curious on his thoughts on it. And one thing that they pointed out, and I thought this is so fascinating was that for the first time with AI, what we can have we have the potential for an explosion in across all industries. In that, until now, our development, our technological development was very nonlinear. So rocket science can move at one pace, marine biology is going to move at another pace. And, our ability to understand animal psychology and human psychology might move at very different paces because we only have X amount of resources that we can only do X amount of work for. And this would hypothetically propel all of us, all industries up another level. And what I was thinking from there was this is a very interesting time for another almost form of human evolution to occur because people are going to be able to choose to evolve where they want to be in a totally different way than ever before. Someone that grows up in space and someone that grows up with social media and someone that grows up in an Amish town and someone that grows up underwater in a submarine are going to inherently evolve into almost different species, like, completely. And I think we're at a really, really interesting conjuncture in human history where where as technology development develops, we're gonna have the ability to almost choose our own evolutionary destiny, what we want to where we wanna head. And I bet that if that is getting to the point if we're getting to the point as humans, as the silly humans that we are, what other life has had the opportunity to go there, and recently, and it hasn't been as big of a topic, but with the UFO conversation, a lot of it's from the ocean. Or one of the things I saw in one of the documentaries was one of the complexities of the UFOs, just aside from the instant acceleration and stuff, was that if there's like let's say a ball or a circle kind of thing, and it's flying low by the ocean, it'll go underwater and then into the air and then continue underwater and through the air without stopping, sorry, at a consistent acceleration or consistent speed. And only people that would be kind of aware of the ocean would be aware of how complicated the technology has to be in order to be able to even do that. Because I mean, I know that if I throw a football at my kid and he's in the pool and I'm throwing it as hard as I can and he's 6 inches in the water, no matter what I'm doing, it's not
Yeah,
going to get to him.
yeah.
What do you think of all that?
So, few things. Possibly some of the things that are seen, I imagine might be top secret ocean exploration things,
Development. The same military stuff.
which which is also cool,
Yeah,
right?
very cool. Yeah.
It's like, okay, nothing wrong with that. That's also cool. And I embrace, you know, talking about UFOs, mermaids, whatever. I mean, because in a sense, and I know that some scientists are like, oh, well, like, I'm not going to talk about that, whatever. But to me, the joy in the unknown, right, helps people to be more curious.
Mhm,
And again, coming back to the idea of respect,
mhm.
right? So there's some really cool stuff out there that we don't understand. Like, great, let's embrace that.
Yeah.
And I also I want to touch on something that you said about kind of planning for the future, like determining our own destiny kind of ideas. Because I think that is separate from like the what the technology enables. The technology enables all sorts of interesting things. AI is, interesting. Our ability to adapt to different environments is interesting. But I think that extra piece is really important because taking, for example, like conservation, environmentalism movement,
Mhm.
you may hear messages like humans need to lessen our impact. But that is wrong because humans have impact. Everything has impact.
Right.
You don't want to lessen your impact. You want to decide what do you want your impact to be.
Correct.
And I think the thing that is I- it's empowering, but it's also scary because it means that you have to make choices.
Yes.
And
Nothing's as scary as freedom is.
yeah.
We don't wanna be
So
it's hard to be free.
because then it opens up things like, okay, you're planning for the future. Are you looking at a future with humans in it? Because if you care about that, you need to factor that into your choices.
Mhm.
So that gets back to the ethics stuff, right?
Yeah,
But I think everything we're doing has impact. Our plans for the future are we're making these choices. We need to own the choices. We need to
yeah,
be like, okay, we're gonna do the best we can. This is what we want to do, so let's go towards that.
yeah.
And just own it because we are doing that. So acting like we're not is just then that is like saying, "Oh, well, that's not my responsibility." It is.
Mhm.
Every one of us has that responsibility, and as we're bringing in new complex technology, it's still our responsibility.
Sure. It's even more so. We're the ones that introduced it,
Yeah.
you know? You break it, you bought it. You come somewhere and you break a bunch of things around you and there's consequences to that. For sure. On a speculative from a coming from a speculative place, I feel like one of the things about what was so interesting about America as a country, that got that and I've been learning a lot more in the last couple of years just about history and our history and national psychology and the national feelings and throughout the course of at least modern American history. And one thing that's interesting to me is that as soon as we became a powerhouse, as soon as we became the leader, was when we became arrogant and we forgot how to be excited and cowboys and to figure things out and to break things and to try new things and to say, and to have the curiosity to say, what is that? And then keep that as a data point without totally disregarding it because it doesn't fit into your system of the way that you've already been successful, and so what I think we've done is we've forgotten how to adapt. And what I think I'm very excited about, and what I've noticed anecdotally from my own experience, but I really think is a trend, is that the younger generation, let's say 25 and younger or 30 and younger, have been disillusioned and don't think that
Mm,
our institutions are the institutions that they are, as great as great as the previous generation may have thought. And while on one hand, it's sad for those institutions because they were built on something incredible, it also gives more space for more creativity and more fun and more freedom. I mean, you have, for example, even with these from a pop culture standpoint, you have this Obsession movie that came out, right? Cost $750,000 to make and grossed over $1 billion. And now Hollywood's trying to figure out how to turn that into a formula. It's not a formula, like this isn't a science. And what you should be observing is the fact that some kid who's a first, kid director that's been, you implementing creativity and you take even, from a music perspective, right? The music I love, rock comes from the roots of jazz and blues and soul and gospel and you take all these and you amalgamate it, just but you have to have appreciation for each of these kind of disciplines along the way. And so I think that this younger generation, the benefit of our institutions kind of breaking, even though it kind of hurts and even though it stinks and even though there are obviously it's not all fun and games. One of the positives is that it gives us something to build again. It gives, it's like you have that Lego set and you're so afraid to break that Lego castle. You don't know what else you could do with the blocks. And then your kid breaks it and you're like, no, why'd you do that? And then the kid goes and rebuilds something else. And I could not believe you even were able to make that out of what we had. So I'm really hopeful that science, marine science, terrestrial science, extraterrestrial science, all this becomes much more. We develop a much more humble and fun and experimental attitude about all this, and I really appreciate that. That it seems to me from just our hour and a half that you really follow this discipline and school of thought, and I really appreciate that.
I think I just wanna add to that, the the life paths open to kids now versus before, the the landscape is different,
Mhm.
and stability and security used to be interlinked, and, like, you wanted to get a job and stay there, and now it's a very different
I
Well,
don't know how I don't know what I'm gonna do for my kid's education. I don't know what would be a good form of education for my kid. Would it be I don't think it's sending them to a class, to sit in a classroom for 9 hours a day. I don't think that's gonna serve them in the world that's coming up. I think it's much better to have them break things and learn things and start things and do projects and I think learn autonomy. I think that we've crippled our autonomy with a lot of the school system, and that worked for a period. That worked for a couple, for a series of generations, say. But
I mean,
uh,
making things standardized is like, okay, yeah, you're getting everybody to do something a certain way, but then you're also getting everybody to do something a certain way. And so, in an individual, I think for kids now, having a broad educational foundation is key
mhm,
because that then gives you the ability to pivot
yes,
and take advantage of opportunities, and that's critical now. If you want job security, that means being flexible, that
yes,
means being able to figure out how to apply skills from one area into another. That's being able to recognize that a lot of opportunities are at the intersections of disciplines and sectors, and that's where you need to be able to feel comfortable. So you have to have a broad foundation for that. And then also, you were talking about like the country. We need a variety of different backgrounds and foundations and points of view in order to be strong.
mhm, definitely, yeah. And yeah, for sure. To leave you off, and I really appreciate your time. This is so much fun, and I want to be in touch if you are interested about the ultrasound thing for sure.
Totally, yeah. Let's
Okay,
do it.
awesome. Okay, is what are some of I guess the most cutting edge things that you're excited to research or excited to learn about, or what are some cutting edge things that excite you?
Mm, there's a lot.
Okay, now give me top three.
Oof, okay. Well, the the role of sound in ecosystem and human health
Cool.
and understanding how that works and coming back to like what can we but and also like what can we do about it? How do
Mhm.
we make that situation better for humans and better for environmental dynamics with humans being a part of it? So the sound
What?
I know that's a little bit broad, but I think
No, it's
I think
cool.
it has to be looked at kind of
Broadly, for sure.
yeah,
One of my first professional guests was a music therapist. And she specifically worked actually down in Miami Jackson, I believe, Jackson Memorial, I believe that, and she's a music therapist, and we are talking a lot about the ukulele and the piano and kids, mental health, well being, and I had another guest that was talking about that was researching the the brain, the neurology of creativity and
mhm,
improvising and jamming, especially with kids, and sticking them in what's the machine where a CT machine where you could scan the brain or you see what's
yeah,
cut.
or like
So
MR yeah, could be that, yeah.
and have them and give them an instrument and play music in the background. They couldn't do anything wrong. The instrument that they had, all the music they were playing, all the notes that they could play would be within the framework of the music, to make it correct. But which reward circuits were activated, which ones weren't, with across. And I think that these are real legitimate forms how music relates to dementia
Oh,
and
yeah,
to cognitive abilities for sure. So that's
yeah,
very cool. Okay, what else?
yeah, well, and let's hope they're putting the kids in an MRI, not a CT scanner, but
Yes,
anyway, we'll
I
see.
hope that. Yes, I'm sure she knows way more than I do, and I was just butchering that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so kind of related to that, I want to compose more music
Hmm.
that is achieving, like, emotional harmony, right? So one of the things I've been working on is harmonization of noise.
Nice, amazing.
So, like, actual so one of my songs that's out there now, like, anybody can go listen to it, like, it's on streaming, YouTube, you can go to my YouTube channel and find it, is a harmonization of a boat motor.
Hmm.
So I play the boat motor sound, and then instead of, like, taking away the noise, can you harmonize with the noise? Like, if you
Hmm.
can't beat it, can you join it?
Sure.
So, that's an area that I'm actively
Awesome.
working on. I've
Awesome.
got other
Okay.
stuff too,
Yeah.
right?
Awesome.
Yeah, and, yeah, I mean, I think getting back to our earlier discussion, I mean, I would like to talk to dolphins too,
Yeah. How cool would that be, huh?
but I'd also like to talk to snapping shrimp.
Yeah. And whales. I
Yeah,
think whales have different accents based
yes.
on where they're from. Is that true?
Yes.
How does that happen?
I mean, same thing, like,
Is it
if
just
you're
the way they
interacting
talk? It's the way they
yeah,
make it's the way they emit the noise?
yeah, so, like, you're interacting a lot, you develop your own thing, and then you go to
Right.
another group, you're like, "Oh, you don't say it that way, well, then, let's converge on a thing we
Wow.
both understand." Yeah, I mean, there's
Amazing.
so much going on.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, maybe we'll do this again. This is so much fun.
Great.
Dr. Heather Spence, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here, and, this was really, a real joy. I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, we'll talk. We'll be in touch. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.